There is a moment, a specific moment, a precise instant when everything changes in a deer's assessment of your presence, when the calculation that has been running in the background of her consciousness reaches a conclusion, when the question that has been silently asked, is this being a threat or not a threat, finally arrives at an answer. And in that moment, something becomes visibly different. The deer's entire being shifts, the body posture changes, the muscle tension releases or intensifies, the eyes change, the quality of attention changes, the way the deer orients herself in space changes. Every single observable element of the deer's presentation transforms in response to the internal conclusion: you are not a threat. This is not metaphorical. This is not poetic. This is the observable, measurable, visible shift that occurs in the exact moment when a wild deer decides that a human being is safe. And once you understand what you are looking at, once you recognize the signs of this moment, you will never mistake it again. Tonight you are going to understand what a deer is actually doing in the moment when she realizes you are not a threat. Welcome back to Hidden Backyard Wildlife, the channel where we sit with the small wild lives that share our yards and try to understand what they understand about the world. If you are new here, make sure you subscribe before this video is over, because what you are about to learn is going to change the way you observe deer. Because you will finally understand that moment you have probably witnessed 100 times and never quite recognized for what it actually is. The moment when a wild prey animal decides whether you are going to trigger her flight or her stillness. Today we are walking through 8 things a deer does in the moment when she realizes you are not a threat. What each of those things reveals about the threat assessment system of a prey animal, what the visible shift looks like, why the decision to trust is so significant for a deer, a being whose entire survival strategy is built on the ability to flee from danger, and how to recognize the exact instant when trust replaces fear in a wild deer's mind. Stay with me from beginning to end, because revelation number 6 is the one that explains how a deer's threat assessment system actually works, and revelation number 8 is the one that will make you understand that the deer that stops fleeing from you is not just demonstrating habituation. She is demonstrating trust. She is choosing to stay vulnerable in your presence. And that choice is profound. The moment is about to happen. Watch carefully, because once you understand what you are looking at, you will never unsee it. The first thing that happens in the moment when a deer realizes you are not a threat is a particular kind of freeze. Before this moment, if the deer has perceived you as a potential threat, her body is in motion, either the motion of alert stillness, the ready-to-flee stillness where every muscle is coiled, or the motion of actual flight, the escape running. But at the exact moment when the assessment concludes that non-threat is the correct categorization, something changes in the quality of the freeze. The body stops, but not in the alert, coiled way. The freeze becomes a different kind of freeze, a settled freeze, a still but calm freeze. The body becomes still in the way that indicates the threat detection system has downregulated, not the way that indicates the threat detection system is maximally activated. This is a subtle but crucial difference. The alert freeze of a threatened deer has a particular quality of tension. The calm freeze of a trusting deer has a quality of settlement. Watch a deer when she realizes you are not a threat. Notice the specific moment when the coiled readiness dissolves into calm presence. Notice the exact instant when the body stops being prepared for flight and becomes simply still. Researchers studying freeze responses in prey animals have found that freeze behaviors differ significantly depending on the threat level being detected, with high-threat freezes showing measurable muscle tension and low-threat freezes showing muscular relaxation, suggesting that the quality of the freeze itself communicates the threat perception level. She is not running, she is not in alert readiness, she is simply still, present, calm. The eyes are always the first to reveal the internal state, and in the moment when a deer realizes you are not a threat, the eyes change in a very specific way. Before this moment, if the deer has perceived threat, her eyes are wide. The pupils are often dilated. The gaze is sharp. The eyes show the hypervigilance of a threat detection system that is actively engaged. The eye quality carries the message: danger detected, attention maximized, response readiness activated. And then at the exact moment of threshold crossing, the eyes change. The eyes become softer. The width decreases slightly. The gaze quality shifts from sharp vigilance to soft awareness. The pupils may contract slightly. The eyes become oriented in a particular direction, often toward you, often with direct contact, often carrying a quality of attention that is completely different from threat vigilance. This shift in eye quality is one of the most reliable indicators of the threshold moment. The eye shift often happens before other observable changes become visible. The eyes shift first. Some observers describe the eye shift as the moment when the deer's gaze melts or softens. The quality of hardness that accompanies threat assessment dissolves into a softer attention. Researchers studying eye contact in prey animals have found that direct eye contact from prey animals typically indicates a state of reduced threat perception. With prey animals avoiding eye contact during high-threat situations and maintaining direct eye contact during reduced threat situations, suggesting that eye contact serves as both a signal and a reflection of the internal threat assessment level. In the moment of threshold crossing, the deer's eyes tell you that the internal assessment has shifted from threat to non-threat. The ears of a prey animal are constantly monitoring for sound-based threat information. The ears orient towards sounds that might indicate danger. The ears track potential threats. Before the moment of threshold crossing, if the deer has perceived you as a potential threat, her ears are often oriented in specific alert positions. The ears might be oriented toward you. The ears might be swiveling to track your movements. The ears show the direction of the animal's threat attention. And then, at the moment of threshold crossing, the ear position changes. The ears relax. The alert forward orientation releases. The ears move to a more neutral position. The ears no longer point toward the source of potential threat, but rather settle into a natural, relaxed position. This ear position change is subtle but consistent. The shift from threat monitoring orientation to relaxed orientation. Some observers describe the ears as dropping or relaxing back at the moment of threshold crossing. The ears move from the forward alert position to a position that indicates the threat detection system has downregulated. The ear position change is particularly notable because it shows that the deer is no longer actively monitoring for threat-related sound information. The scanning has stopped. The listening has shifted from threat focus to general awareness. Researchers studying ear position and threat response in prey animals have found that ear position correlates strongly with threat perception, with forward alert ears indicating active threat monitoring and relaxed ears indicating reduced threat perception. When you see a deer's ears shift from alert forward to relaxed, you are witnessing the moment when the threat assessment system has concluded its calculation. Respiration is one of the most reliable physiological indicators of threat perception. A threatened deer shows rapid, shallow breathing, the breathing of a body prepared for flight. The breath mirrors the nervous system activation. And then, at the moment of threshold crossing, the breathing changes. The breathing becomes deeper, slower, more regular. The breath that was synchronized with threat detection becomes synchronized with calm presence. This shift happens in the space of a single breath or a few breaths, not gradually over time. In a relatively rapid transition, the breathing pattern shifts from the pattern of threat response to the pattern of calm presence. You can often see this breathing change in the movement of the deer's body. The rib cage expands differently with deep breathing than it does with shallow breathing, the body settling with the deeper breath. Researchers studying respiration and threat response in animals have found that respiration rate shifts rapidly in response to threat perception changes, with threatened animals showing respiration rates significantly elevated above resting rates and calm animals returning to baseline or near baseline respiration. The breathing change is often one of the most visible signs of the threshold crossing. The entire body seems to relax as the breath deepens. Before the moment of threshold crossing, a prey animal in threat detection mode holds her muscles in a state of readiness. The muscles are coiled. Every muscle group is positioned for explosive movement. The animal is literally a coiled spring, ready to launch into flight. And then, at the exact moment of threshold crossing, the muscles release. The legs that were held in ready position soften. The back that was held tight relaxes. The overall body posture shifts from coiled ready to settled calm. Every muscle group releases its readiness. This release is often visible as a whole body relaxation. The animal becomes less tense, more open, more settled. The coiled quality of the body dissolves into a more natural posture. Watch a deer at the moment of threshold crossing. Watch the muscles release. Watch the entire being shift from ready to flee to calm presence. The muscle release is not just physical. It is the visible expression of the nervous system shifting from flight preparation to rest and digest mode. The sympathetic nervous system downregulates. The parasympathetic nervous system activates. The entire physiology shifts. Researchers studying muscle tension and threat response have found that measurable reductions in muscle tone occur rapidly when threat perception decreases, with previously coiled muscles releasing into more relaxed postures as the threat assessment system downregulates. This is the revelation that explains how a prey animal's threat assessment system actually works. And it is the moment when you understand the sophistication of the decision the deer is making. A deer maintains a constant calculation of the distance between herself and potential threats. There is a particular distance, different for each individual and each context, that represents the boundary between safe distance and threatening proximity. If the threat is beyond safe distance, the deer can relax. If the threat is at or crossing into threatening proximity, the deer must flee. Before the moment of threshold crossing, the deer is calculating you as a threat. Your distance is being evaluated in terms of threat distance. The deer is monitoring how close you are getting and assessing whether your proximity has crossed into the flee threshold. And then, at the moment of threshold crossing, the distance calculation changes. The distance between you is suddenly recalculated as safe distance. The same proximity that a moment before was being evaluated as potentially threatening is now being evaluated as acceptable. The deer's internal calculation has shifted. You are no longer a threat at proximity. You are now a non-threat at proximity. This shift in distance calculation is significant because it means the deer is no longer in active flight preparation. The deer is no longer scanning your movements to determine if you are crossing the flee threshold. The deer has decided that you can be at this proximity without triggering flight. This is where trust enters the picture. The deer is trusting that your proximity will not become dangerous. The deer is allowing herself to relax in your presence. The deer is placing herself in the vulnerable position of calm presence while another being is near. Researchers studying flight initiation distance in prey animals have found that the distance at which prey animals begin fleeing is not fixed, but is dynamically calculated based on threat perception, with low-threat individuals triggering flight only at much closer distances than high-threat individuals, suggesting that the distance threshold is continuously updated based on threat assessment. The distance calculation shift is the moment when the deer's entire relationship to your proximity changes. You are no longer categorized as a being from whom she must maintain safety distance. You are categorized as a being whose proximity is acceptable. Throughout the threat assessment phase, the deer's gaze is oriented in a specific way. The gaze is distributed. The eyes are reading the environment generally, with you being one element among many threat-relevant variables being monitored. And then at the moment of threshold crossing, the gaze orientation shifts. The gaze becomes more focused. The attention becomes more concentrated. The eyes become oriented in a particular direction, often toward you. The quality of attention shifts from threat monitoring vigilance to social attention. This shift from distributed threat scanning to focused social attention is significant. It indicates that the threat detection system has downregulated enough that other attention systems can activate. The deer is no longer in full threat response mode. The deer is capable of engaging social attention. Some observers describe this shift as the moment when the deer begins to really see the human. The gaze becomes less about threat assessment and more about recognition. The gaze becomes less about dangerous object evaluation and more about being in proximity evaluation. The gaze shift often involves direct eye contact. The deer may look directly at you. The eye contact carries a quality of presence that is different from the eye contact of threat assessment. This shift from threat monitoring gaze to social attention gaze is not just behavioral. It represents a shift in the brain systems being activated. The threat detection brain systems are downregulating. The social cognition brain systems are activating. And this is the revelation that will shift how you understand wild animals. In the moment when a deer realizes you are not a threat, the deer chooses vulnerability. A prey animal's entire survival strategy is built on the ability to detect threat and respond by fleeing. The vigilance, the alert readiness, the coiled muscles, the rapid breathing, the distributed attention, all of these are expressions of a survival strategy built on flight. When a deer downregulates all of these protective systems and settles into calm presence in proximity to you, the deer is choosing something profound. The deer is choosing to become vulnerable. The deer is choosing to place herself in a position where, if she had misread the threat assessment and you actually were dangerous, she would not be able to flee as effectively. The deer is trusting. The deer is making a conscious decision to stop running from you. The deer is choosing to stay still in your presence. The deer is choosing to allow this proximity. This is not casual habituation. This is not simple lack of fear. This is an active choice to be vulnerable with another being. And what makes this choice even more profound is that it is voluntary. The deer could continue to flee. The deer could continue to maintain distance. The deer could continue to run at the slightest movement you make. But instead, the deer chooses to trust. The deer chooses to stay. The deer chooses to become a soft presence in your proximity. This choice to trust, to voluntarily downregulate the survival systems that kept the deer alive for millennia, is the moment when the wild animal becomes accessible to you not as a creature to be observed from a distance, but as a being in relationship. The deer that realizes you are not a threat is not demonstrating fearlessness. The deer is demonstrating trust. The deer is demonstrating choice. The deer is demonstrating the capacity to make a decision about who is safe to be vulnerable with. And that is not a story about deer behavior. That is a story about being chosen, about being evaluated by a wild being and found to be trustworthy, about a creature deciding that your presence is safe enough to relax into, about the moment when you become, in the eyes of this wild being, someone who can be trusted with vulnerability. That moment is profound. That moment is a gift. Before I go, I want to ask you something, and I want you to answer in the comments below. Have you ever witnessed that exact moment? The instant when a deer's entire being shifted, when you could see the change happen in real time, when the animal's body language changed so completely that you could feel the shift in your own being. Tell me about it. Where were you? What was the deer doing? What did you see in that exact moment? Did the deer maintain eye contact with you? Did you sense that you had been evaluated and found trustworthy? The stories this hidden backyard wildlife community shares are some of the most extraordinary I read every week. And every single one of them matters, because every single one of them is a story about the moment when a wild animal decided to trust. If anything in this video changed the way you observe deer, if it changed what you will see the next time you encounter a deer in the wild, share it with someone who would understand. Sometimes the right perspective at the right moment changes not just what we notice, but how we move through the wild world. Thank you for being here at Hidden Backyard Wildlife. The next time you see a deer, watch for the moment. Watch the body freeze in the calm way. Watch the eyes soften. Watch the ears relax. Watch the breathing deepen. Watch the entire being shift from flight-ready to calm present. That moment is real. That moment is the moment when the deer evaluates you and finds you trustworthy. And once you understand what you are looking at, you will understand that you have been chosen. The deer has decided to be vulnerable with you. That is not a small thing. I will see you in the next one.